Hey, everybody. How are you guys? Good to see you. I just ask that as you ask your questions, please step up to the microphone. Chairman.
Thank you. And good morning. Appreciate the continued conversations with Chairman's Chat. As we've talked about before, it's an opportunity to kind of give you an update on kind of the hot issues that we have going on right now, but also give the press an opportunity to ask questions on things that are on their mind to promote, again, the transparent and the communication that we want to ensure that we have with the press as well as the public. So a couple things that I want to talk about this morning. First, just want to acknowledge what's happening with our federal shutdown. We know this is impacting our community. Our community is unique in the sense that we have military members as well as their families that are being impacted. We know our federal workers, and we have a large federal worker contingency across our community that are being impacted right now. And we just want to make sure that they know that we are here and we continue to look for ways that we can be of assistance. We have set up a resource page off of our website, so you can go to CumberlandCountyNC.gov. There's a resource pages. I know other news outlets have also put up items as well. We want to continue to consolidate those and point people in the direction. As a board and as a county government, we continue to look for ways and opportunities that we can lessen the burden and the impact that's happening right now, unfortunately, in our community based on this federal shutdown. As I've mentioned previously, what we know, we are watching very closely what's happening in our health and human services arena to ensure we're not seeing any impacts at the Department of Health and Department of Social Services. We know we're watching that to make sure there's not any impacts. We know also with the USDA and some impacts that potentially on our farmers here in this area as well, and I mentioned both of those previously. We'll continue to aggressively work that with our federal delegation as well as our local team and our management team to look at what the impacts will be and how we can try to assist and mitigate them in the short term to ensure that our community members are not impacted. But we know that it's happening in our community today, and it's very unfortunate. Next, talk about Joint 911. So today you're going to see Joint 911. There was a briefing that was presented from the working group that was put together, a public safety working group that the mayor and I put together across the county. It was led by Chief Freddie Johnson, who heads the Cumberland County Fire Chiefs Association. He brought together public safety officials from across the community, took the electeds out of it. They came back with a report and some recommendations. Those came forward to a joint liaison city council meeting, city-county liaison meeting. And the motion from that was to move them forward to our respected individual boards. Today, I believe, unless they change it, I don't want to speak for the city council, but on their agenda, they'll speak to the Joint 911, give them an opportunity as an individual board to have their conversations. We will do the same thing at our agenda session this week. We'll have a conversation around Joint 911, let our board have those conversations. What we saw from the recommendation is a full consolidation. So believe as you look at best practices, that is the best practice. As you look at North Carolina 911 and other best practices across the nation, you're seeing that full consolidation. These were the recommendation. You look at the governance structure, there's a couple governance structures. I believe that is where the electeds are going to have to weigh in and better understand the governance structure. So you can have a joint board that controls a joint governance. So think of like the way the TDA is set up. You've got a separate entity, a separate governing entity that can control the governance structure of that. Whether electeds are on that or not, I think that's a point of discussion. You can also have a single body, whether it's just the county or the city, do that. One of the things that made this proposal different, understanding the need of mental health services across our community, we've looked to integrate mental health response into the Joint 911 operations. We believe with our partnership with the Alliance and things that we are already doing and leaning forward, that we can apply resources to make sure that we have a healthcare professional that answers the phone, because we know when people are in crisis, they're going to call 911. And the sooner we can connect them with a healthcare professional, the better the response will be. And then there's a series of other steps around that, how we can integrate potential mobile teams that could go out that are dispatched just like a firefighter is dispatched, or just like a police or sheriff is dispatched from our joint 911. You'd also have a advisory board that would stand up, that would really look at the protocols. So more of the policy and protocols, the public safety officials would be part of that advisory board to make sure you get that wider breadth of public officials public safety officials from across the community. And then a shared cost model, and that was a point of, I think, conversation in previous years. This is a pretty straightforward cost-sharing model. We know that the city has some dollars that they had through a bond referendum to look at public safety. Are there opportunities? We know in this community we have a primary PSEP, so our joint 911 facility. The county just stood up a brand new one a few years ago, but we know there's still a need for a backup. So I think there's unique conversations around how we can look at a primary and a backup facility and what that looks like in the conversations with the city. So we're looking forward to what comes from the city today, and more importantly, what our board has a conversation around later this week. And then it's my intent and the mayor's intent to call a joint meeting between the city and the county once we've had the opportunity to have the board discussions, individual board discussions, and come together and do that to show that how we can move forward together as a community on joint 911. You know, and I say it all the time, people just want to know that when they call to get help, that, you know, that somebody's going to pick up the phone, they're going to get the best solution. And I think what you see now from best practices is one PSEP. And when you look at the direction that the state North Carolina 911 board is directing, whether it's through funding and grants and other things, they are recommending one PSEP, one facility in each community. Very briefly, the Crown Theater and Arena at our last one of our last meetings, the manager is moving forward, the county manager Greer is moving forward with an RFQ. And remember, a request for qualifications for an architect and a construction manager at risk. So we will do an RFQ to determine who's interested in bidding on or participating in those projects, who has the qualifications is what we're looking for. And then we will use an RFP, a request for proposals, once we get ready to actually shape the scope and the pricing and the programming for each one of those facilities. We also intend, as part of our process, to have a pre-planning conference between the RFQ and the submission of RFPs to further refine that programming and budget so that the RFP is more specific. Additionally, so that's on the RFQ. We expect that RFQ to go out. Again, this is at the manager level. So we expect that RFQ to go out about a 30-day turnaround. It should go out here. If it's not already gone out, it'll go out over the next couple of weeks, and they'll bring that back once they make a selection to the board for final approval. Short update on the Gillespie Street site. So that is the site right now where the former parking lot was. Just as a reminder, we directed the manager. He's working with Robert Van Giens from Economic Development to look at those economic development opportunities, so things like food and hospitality, cultural venues, mixed use. We're looking at those options all combined, probably with some type of parking potentially as well. But we're awaiting Robert Van Giens to come back to us with some options, and we'll have further conversations around that. Additionally, at this week's work session, at the request of the board, there was a resident survey that went out. We've had a good amount of response, and that response and that survey will be briefed at the work session on this week on October 9th. And then hopefully you've all seen the courthouse parking plan. So we know when we lost 200 spaces in the old Gillespie Street lot, that we needed to reorganize the parking around the courthouse, both for our employees and the courthouse employees, but also our public. That's been launched. There's been a lot of public information around that and how that will be laid down and where people can park, as well as some enhanced security and lighting and some of the additional lots. And we'll continue to look for adjacent parking to continue to expand that footprint, but we wanted to go ahead and get this reorganized parking plan in place. So those are my updates on the things that are kind of on the front of our windshield right now as we're moving forward. Lots of other things going on, but those are the things I wanted to highlight, and I'll open it up for questions on those or any other topics.
For the audience, I'm Paul Wolverton. I'm with CityView. And on the parking, are there plans to pave the gravel lot?
That is an option that our manager is looking at. Currently, there's not been a final decision on that.
Okay. And it occurred to me, the Gillespie Street site kind of became available because a year ago it was, torn up for the now canceled Crown Event Center. And if if that had never happened and it just was still a parking lot today, would you all even be thinking about doing some other economic development there?
It's a great question, Paul. I think situations have driven where we are today, so I can't speak to a hypothetical on. I would look towards, quite frankly, Cool Springs and what the master plan is for downtown, and how what downtown Fayetteville looks like in a master plan.
You mean Cool Spring Downtown District?
Correct, Cool Spring.
Right, okay. And then you were talking about with 911 having a joint meeting with the mayor. When do you think that might be?
Joint meeting with the boards.
But then you said, I thought you had an announcement or something with the mayor.
No.
Okay.
No. So we will, I said, the mayor and I plan to host a joint board meeting.
Okay.
So we
Gotcha.
will have the full city council, the full board of commissioners in a joint meeting to have continued discussions on the 911 and look to find our path forward.
How soon do you think that might take place?
Well, I think both the mayor and I, again, I don't want to speak for Mayor Colvin. They have their meeting today. It's scheduled on their agenda for today. We have ours on Thursday. So I think once we come out of those meetings, he and I will have a conversation and get a feel for where our boards are and if they're ready to have those conversations jointly.
Well, kind of what I'm getting at is the city's we might have a new mayor in December. So I don't know if that might influence how things go forward here.
Paul, I'm focused on governing this community now, and that's what we need to continue to do. And I believe that the mayor is on the same accord.
All right. I noticed this morning you all just agreed or voted to allocate $56,250 of Cumberland County taxpayer money for a position that the state, or I don't know if it's a position or it's a job, but it's for contractor for the Superior Court, that the state was supposed to fund, but they didn't pass their budget, and it's still sitting out there. So, I mean, it's like their inability to make a decision is having an effect downhill, and of course, we're also going to be seeing that with the federal shutdown. But on the state level, I mean, are you lobbying them? How else are you being affected by the fact that they haven't passed a budget? And what are you doing to tell them to make them do their jobs?
Well, Paul, I think if you recall, the state operates on a continuing resolution. So they have a baseline budget. What you're not seeing is you're not seeing the increases, for, they've passed so many budgets, and I don't want to speak for the General Assembly body. We'll continue to advocate and have conversations with our local delegation about things that are important and concerns that we have around, potentially what's happening with Medicaid, or long-term what may happen with some of our healthcare benefits or health benefits like SNAP and others. We continue to have those conversations with our delegation about the priorities that are important to us and how it impacts us here at a local level. We have no say-so over whether a budget approved. I'm no longer in the state Senate, so I can't have that impact that I had when I was there. But as a county commissioner and as a board and as a chairman of this board, we routinely talk to our delegation about what our priorities are and the importance of ensuring that our community is not impacted based on any cuts, potential cuts, or inabilities to finalize a budget.
Okay. On the Joint 911 Center again, I saw a presentation at City Council about this, about 911, at the last council meeting I went to the last couple weeks. If memory serves, the existing facility I think you have on Executive Place, would that, it sounded like it wouldn't be big enough to accommodate both the city and the county. And you mentioned a few minutes ago about having a main and a backup center, but I mean, are y'all just gonna, but if there's not enough room, there's not enough room.
And I think our intent, what you'll see, one of the other conversations around this Joint 911 is you need to get a smart person to come in and integrate this. Mm-hmm. So while there was a study done back in 2016 based on size and square footage, we've seen a lot of technology changes. Mm-hmm. I think what you saw at the City Council was a discussion around an architect for their 911 center.
Yes.
I will just say that you have to have a primary and a backup. We have one facility. If they build another, there's a lot of opportunities. I think that's part of our conversation that we can have with the city to see what's in the best interest of the community and the taxpayers, quite frankly, on how we move those forward.
And to educate me a little bit, so the city, of course, has their own 911 service, and then there's the county one. Is the county one also serving Hope
We
Mills?
serve all the municipalities.
All except for the city?
Correct.
Okay. And I think that's it, unless, this federal shutdown, even more than the state situation, it seems like that could really start becoming painful. And not just because of the military, for all the other services. What are you going to have to do?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Paul. And I think it's very unfortunate, the situation that we're in as a community and that many others across the state and nation, quite frankly, are in. But as we look at our community, we've done some things here as a county commission to help offset some of that, or to kind of lean into some of this early. So during our budget process, we funded our food shelters at a higher rate. We did some things to fund our nonprofits because we know that in times like these, nonprofits fill those gaps. They fill the gaps where government doesn't. And so I'm extremely proud of the work that this board has done to do some of that, to lean forward into knowing that we need to resource our nonprofits. We need to resource some of these areas to ensure that in times like these that we can bridge the gap. But we have to continue to understand what's happening and keep our quite frankly, keep our lines of communication open with our federal delegation and others to understand what's happening and when it's going to happen and how long this is going to happen. Depending on the area, whether it's in the SNAP arena and in DSS or other areas, the funding cycle is different. Remember, you have 3 funding cycles for those primary things. You have a federal, a state, and a local. So we have to look at how that's blended. Maybe there's a reach to the state to ask for some intermediate help as well. I think what we're going to be focused on is what's happening, what's the impact to our community, and what can we do at our level to be responsive and nimble in affecting the people that are affected today. Because you and I both know that when you potentially live paycheck to paycheck or paycheck to every other paycheck, and that paycheck is now gone, there's going to be an impact. And so we want to make sure we're communicating the resources that are out there across our community with nonprofits, but also what the government has at the federal level, at the state level, and at the local level. And if there's something that we can do, we'll begin to have that conversations as a board, as a manager, and the team bring it forward to us.
And related to that, the hospital, I guess its official name is the Cumberland County Hospital System, even though it's Caper Valley Health. If if they got patients coming in who are supposed to be getting Medicaid or Medicare to reimburse the hospital for their services, I mean, I don't know how much. it falls
I
under
don't want
you,
to speak
but-
for, I don't want to speak for the hospital system. We are a member of that board of trustees, and so we do serve on it. But that is a concern. When you look at a 10% cut to Medicaid that's effective 1 October, that's a state issue that can be resolved in the General Assembly or at the administration level with Governor Stein. And that impacts our community potentially because it also, when you make the cut to providers as well, and there's a 3% cut to providers, that could mean that some providers may choose not to take Medicaid, and now that's going to have an impact on our emergency room. So, those are things that I know our hospital systems are watching, and we continue to advocate at the federal level around the impacts we see with healthcare, but there's also an impact at the state level with the Medicaid reimbursement rates. And both of those will impact our community in different ways, but in the same type of ways, especially when you look at our hospital system as well as our private providers as well.
So you're thinking that with the reductions in the Medicaid, Medicare payments, that people who were going to go to like a private doctor, urgent care, will instead end up in the emergency room?
Only if those private providers
If they-
decide not to take Medicaid.
Gotcha.
I guess my focus is, we continue to advocate that we find common ground, that we find a resolution, that cooler heads prevail, and that we think about what's in the best interest of not just our community, but the state and the nation when you look at healthcare and the importance of healthcare in our state and in our county today,
All right. Rachel?
especially with mental health.
Yeah.
So related to the Crown, was a RFQ issued out in June, or I think there maybe have been a little bit of confusion on my part, maybe with all the different changes in votes that were
Yeah.
kind of revolving around that. So was there a prior RFQ issued out, or is it that became null and void, or is it that now y'all are preparing to finally do that?
That's correct. So we directed the manager at that time to look at an RFQ. There were some discussions around what that RFQ would look at. And then I think a step back to look at the procurement process and what we would go through and how we would bring an RFQ online for an architect and a construction manager at risk. So that process has been adjusted some, and now the RFQ is going to go out.
And do you know about the timeline of when that will be issued out? Or
I'll
next few
direct that
weeks?
to the manager. The manager, at our last committee meeting, I believe you'd see it within the next 2 weeks out on the street. And so we will publicize that RFQ and put it in the natural procurement channels to ensure that qualified architects and construction manager at risk have the ability to see that request for qualifications and submit.
Gotcha. And is that going to be, I guess, would it kind of get clarity on if it's going to be one combined project or two separate projects for those facilities? Or
No,
is
so
that-
I think that was part of this discussion and how we went down. So when you look at an RFQ, we're looking for interested vendors that want to be part of a modernization and renovation project for the arena and the theater. Once we identify those qualified vendors and the staff through a procurement process and policy selects, then we would look at some type of pre-planning conference before you move to an RFP or a proposal that would then be a little bit more defined in scope and budget and programming, which is what you'd get from the pre-planning conference. So it's a little bit tighter process than when you get to the RFP, then the architect and the construction manager at risk clearly understand what they're bidding on.
Gotcha. And this may be jumping way too far ahead, and this is also not knowing when the current contract expires. But with the changes that are going to be made to that, does that change anything for Oakview Group that's currently using those facilities?
No, they're actually, they're a stakeholder in this. We have involved them in this process. So during the last Crown Event Center process that was ongoing. OVG was, a stakeholder in those discussions. And so we'll continue to have them at the table with us as we move through. They're uniquely qualified and positioned to tell us the different types of programming, the different types of return based on the investment we can make out there, as well as what's the best use of an investment based on the trends and what can be done out there.
Gotcha. And kind of pivoting to
Sure.
something unrelated, but on E.E. Smith, I believe the school district has yet again gone out for a grant, and I know that the county, in its budget, did make some contributions this past cycle. And when y'all did that, does that account for whether or not, the school district will or won't get that grant?
So I can't speak to the grant process. What I think you see is a school board as well as a county. So I think they're looking for any available dollars. So any way we can offset the cost of new construction of education facilities in our community, we want to do. So they have applied for that needs grant multiple times. We're hopeful this time they'll be successful. If you recall, we've also asked our state delegation to advocate for us for dollars towards new construction. So again, we're looking in multiple sources for funding opportunities. In our budget, we set aside $160 million for new construction. And let me be clear. So the school system right now is going through a consulting project where they are repurposing, redistricting, looking at those options. They're going to bring back that report in December. It's supposed to have already happened, but it got delayed. Once that comes, our intent is to have, like we did before, another joint meeting with the school board. Receive that report. The last time we did that, it was very insightful. It helped us really shape some of the priorities that took us into our budget cycle and as far as our budget allocation. So we look forward to having those conversations. And then what comes out on the far side of that? Is it just one new school? Is it two new schools? What do we need to do? The vice chairwoman and I continue to have conversations with the school board chair and vice chair. We try to routinely meet with them to ensure that our priorities stay aligned when it comes to education and education funding.
That's all I got.
Round two, Paul?
Yeah, well, on the topic of the Crown, one of the reasons I've heard for when they were doing the event center was that if they were to renovate the old facilities, they would be shut down for a while, so shows would be cut off for a period of time while the construction work was being done. What do you anticipate going forward on this front?
I think that's part of the conversation. Is why we have OVG at the table. We can look at how they can use other venues that they may have. It's one of the questions as we work through this process and look at the timing, which is why we want OVG at the table. Oakview Group, who runs the Crown Event Center for us under contract, or the Crown Complex under contract for us, we want them at the table with us so that we can make those decisions with that input. We think that's extremely important.
All right, that's it.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time, and thank you for the questions. And again, as always, thank you for helping us educate the community, talk with the community, and get out the facts and not the opinion on things that are going on. So thank you so much.